Hello everyone, I'm Ishvi Mishra from UK Auto Publishing. Thank you so much for joining this session today. And we are here with our author, Mr. Abuzar Tabassum, to talk about his book, Two-Faced. So now I would like to welcome Mr. Abuzar and I would like to ask him to introduce himself and his book.
Thank you, Svi, for this session and for this interview.
Mhm.
Uh, First of all, I would like to introduce myself. Uh, I belong to Kishanganj, Bihar, a very small town in uh, on the border areas of Bihar. It
Mhm.
is, and I did my schooling in my city, Kishanganj itself,
Mhm.
and then after that, I did my engineering and computer science engineering from Durgapur, and then afterwards I did my masters as well. So as far as writing is concerned, it started way back in school days, but that time I never thought that it would turn up into something big. I was just writing randomly at that time.
Mhm.
So
Right.
yeah,
And would you like to also introduce the book today, your debut novel
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
is Two-Faced? Mhm.
Yeah, this book Two Faced. First of all, many people ask about the name itself. Why this name Two Faced. I will go
Mhm.
into that later.
Mhm.
Uh, this book is a work of fiction, complete work of fiction.
Mhm.
But when I wrote it, am I
Yes,
audible?
yes, you're audible. Can you repeat that again?
Hello.
Yes, yes, you're audible.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yes.
Mhm. So when I was writing this book, there were several things at the back of my mind. So when people read this book, I've got many reviews that they say that this book, uh, the stories look like they're somewhere around us. They're very real. So people. There are many instances when you may confuse that this is a work of fiction or this is a real story or anything. But I want to make it clear at the start that this is a work of fiction. Uh, any resemblance to anything, any place, it will be a mere coincidence. Nothing else.
Right.
Yeah. Uh, this book actually consists of 10 chapters,
Mhm.
and there are stories, 10 chapters. Around 70,000 words. This book consists
Mhm.
of 10 chapters, and all of the stories, different stories. You know,
Mhm.
yeah,
Right. And what exactly motivated you to write this book? Because I mean, it's a collection of short stories, so I'm assuming you must have been writing these stories for a while now. So, what motivated you to compile them and then release a book out of it?
yeah. Actually, when I started writing this book, you know, I never knew that it would uh, complete and make it into a book.
Mm-hmm.
But there are different. There are 3, 4 stories that I've written, and I thought these are good stories.
Mm-hmm.
But at the onset, when I started writing and I completed the stories, uh, I thought they were very simple stories. But the thing that it turned up and I can convert it into a book, the all the thing I would the credit for this I would give it to the editing, that the time that I gave when editing those stories.
Right.
Normally people write books and they just go to the publisher
Mm-hmm.
and they just give it to them, and they think that they would publish this. I gave around 1.5 hour, 1.5 year around in editing those stories. I thought,
Okay.
yeah. So the complete time span is very very huge on that matter.
Okay.
Because of that only. If you add 1.5 year for the editing only, so the complete
Uh-huh.
time span is very big. So
Right.
to so 3.5 year you can like 2 year in the writing part, 1.5 half year in the editing part,
Mm-hmm.
and editing it got. it took me a lot of time because there are two styles of writing normally. First of all, people follow that they have a fixed plot in their mind. They start
Mm-hmm.
writing and they just follow their plot.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
the second style is that they have a rough idea in their mind that whatever they want to write about, and they
Mm-hmm.
just start writing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
in the course of their journey, they discover something new. They find something new, and they change their plot, or not the central idea,
Mm-hmm.
but the plot a little bit from here and there to make it a
Right.
little bit interesting. So unfortunately, I followed the second way. That's why it took me a
Okay.
lot of time.
Okay.
Yeah, because to add something, when I read the stories, because there are many stories. When I read it again and again, and I thought, there is something missing in that, something missing in that, and then add
Mm-hmm.
something in that. So that's the reason why it took me a lot of time in the editing part of the stories.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, I tried to contact the publishers and approach them
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. Yeah,
Right. Right. I mean, looking at the fact that there are so many stories within the book itself, so I mean,
yeah,
I can assume that it must have definitely taken you some time to write all of them. So,
yeah, yeah.
what did the process of writing look like? Like, what inspired you to pen down each and every story? Because if we look at the stories, like they are so varied, but I feel like they
Mhm.
are all sort of connected by the theme of human
Ye-
sentiments,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So can
yeah.
you talk to us about it?
The one thing that I will definitely say that all the stories are interwoven with a lot of philosophical insight. All the
Mm-hmm.
stories,
Right.
and that can be very much related to my personal life as well, or my thinking as
Mm-hmm.
well. So all the
Mm-hmm.
stories are, whatever their plot is or whatever their background, but they're interwoven with a lot of philosophical insight. Like,
Right.
in one story, a boy goes to his village for the first time,
Right.
and he's a person, an old man. He was using, that grass over his head.
Mm-hmm.
He was carrying
Mm.
that grass
Yes.
over his head, and that this was the first time he saw something like that. He used to live in city with his parents, and he saw that, and he asked his parents, he asked his father that, why this old man is
Mm-hmm.
carrying this grass over his head. Then his
Mm.
father teaches him a lesson about the divide in the society, that, that poor and rich divide, and he teaches it with a very beautiful manner. And
Right.
and this is very much explained in the book. And in another story, another chapter, there is a friend, there is a person, there is a character who writes a letter to a person, to a girl,
Yes.
about whom he's not aware whether he would get a response from her or not,
Right.
because
Right.
they are not in contact for many years. He never know, but he still writes that letter. This reflects hope in
Mm-hmm.
what he does. But in the contrary to what his friend uh, teaches him about the point and the crux of the life, he gives a very important lessons to him, and on the whatever you are doing now, it will give you nothing. But in response to his point, he gave a very valid point, and one
Mm-hmm.
can argue about that, what is the essence of life in such times, and what is his situation, personal situation, and what he is going through at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he's writing those letters. But
Mm-hmm.
other people cannot understand them. Just commenting on what he's doing. It could be
Yeah.
very strange. Anyone could, if I per se, I would learn about some person, doing such things, I would call him, he's a madman. But
Mm-hmm.
the point that he gives is very valid, is very
True.
interesting, and that are the points that
Mm-hmm.
one should find very interesting in the
Mm-hmm.
book. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I
That
call
is.
that's why I call that, there are many philosophical insights in many stories. Like, one story is based in the backdrop of Syria.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever is going there. Father his father is killed. They are still living in their place. They don't want to leave their place. We love our hometown. We love our city. We love our country. So, and the next situation is, they're just there is scarcity of life. People are dying, like there are air strikes, there is bombings. So
Mm-hmm.
there is two situations, and his mother is on one hand, his mother says that we can't leave our home like that. So that's
Right.
her point of view, older point of view, I think. And on the other hand, his sons are telling that we have already lost our father, we cannot live here any moment now.
Mm-hmm.
So the scarcity of life, the conflict of life is
Mm-hmm.
very visible in that situation. We can show see through these stories that no, the world is in a state of war always. It may be the world, it may be the people, it may be the society. So we can see through that, through these
Mm-hmm.
stories. Yeah.
Mhm. That is so true. I think you have explained all the different sort of emotions that you've put in the book very well.
Yeah.
And talking about the letters, that reminded me of the first story in the book, that is the City of Ogera,
Yeah.
where Abraham, he talks about how he wants to feel the heartache of a ex-lover again, so that
Yeah.
that pain can make him right. And I feel
Yeah.
like this is something that I don't really see in different books that I read. And I
Yeah.
felt that this is something that all of us feel, like writers in general. I feel like they
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
consume
Yeah.
themselves with the emotions they want to write. So I feel like that you have put it in the book very well. And obviously the whole socio-political dynamics in your book,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
something that I would like to in fact quote Mr. Asif Anwar, who has written the foreword in your book, and I think he describes your book as something that is set in rustic serenity and urban chaos, which I feel like definitely really reflects on the book. So now
Yeah.
that we've talked about the themes itself, and by the way, thank you for keeping it spoiler free, because we do want our audience to pick up your book and read it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I would like to ask our audience to sort of like, just think of this session as a spoiler-free session, so that after you watch this session, you can go and pick up his book from
Yeah.
www.oxfordbookstores.com,
Dot
which I
com.
will repeat again. But talking about all of that, I would also like to talk about the title of the book, because I feel like the title definitely reflects the themes of the book very well. So I would
Yes.
like to
Yes.
hear from you why you decided on that title.
No, there is an interesting story behind the title. When the book was complete, it was with Yukioto, and till that time, I was not sure about the title. I was in
Okay.
confusion. I had three, four titles. Out of those, I had finalized two titles for me
Mm-hmm.
for the book, and I was confused between those. And I discussed with Yukioto on that. What would be a good title, and because that as per the title, then we went for the cover. So
Mm-hmm.
first we decided the title,
Mm-hmm.
and as per the story of the title is, we had two names. Two First is Bruised Souls, and then
Okay.
is, yeah, then Two Face, and then
Okay.
we were confused about that. And then and again I went back to my stories, and I thought,
Mm-hmm.
which title would suit the theme of the book. Then I thought, in many of the stories, the battle that the divide that I've tried to portray,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it is the emotional kashmakash in life, or the battle within ourselves, like,
Right.
जिसको अंदर की लड़ाई जिसको बोलते हैं,
Yes.
or the battle between अमीर गरीब की लड़ाई, or
Mm-hmm.
ऊंच नीच. Yeah, there are many stories again to find the
Yeah.
differences between the upper caste and lower caste also.
Mm-hmm.
So, or or can see the two-faced of the society. It can also, like, battle of the customs also, or the battle between the mind and the heart. That is the
Yes.
most important thing. In the many stories, it is reflected,
Yes.
because many stories, the psyche of the society or the psyche of the person is very much reflected, and that is
Right.
basically the battle between our minds and our heart.
Right.
And psychology, it has strongly reflected in many of the stories, because
Mm-hmm.
there is a reason for that also.
Mm-hmm.
So keeping all these into account, I thought this is the most suitable title for this book, given the fact that the stories that I'm trying to portray,
Mm-hmm.
the double-faced nature of a person as well,
Mm-hmm.
of double-faced nature or two nature, or of the society, of the customs as well, or the relationships as well.
Right.
Taking all these into account, I thought this is the most suitable title for this book.
True. As a reader, like for a second, I would like to talk to you as a reader here. I definitely felt that the title does justice to your book because while reading these stories, I realized that all of them have a sense of nostalgia, but they
Mhm.
also make you reflect on the harsh reality of life. So
Yeah, yeah,
definitely, I feel like this title was very much suitable, and I'm glad
yeah,
that you went with this title for
yeah,
your
yeah,
book.
yeah, yeah.
And
Thanks.
now that we've talked about like the psyche of the characters or the society they live in, can you talk a bit about your characters? Who are these characters? Are these people inspired by real people, real situations? So yeah.
Yeah, there are many characters that are inspired by real life situations, or or inspired by our society, living around us.
Right.
There are many things, like the character in the story, in the story of the villages,
Mm-hmm.
where that boy lives in his villages, and uh, his father is a different is a person whose thinking is completely different from his son, and
Right.
he used to live in city, and then he was forced to come back to his village
Right.
due to a situation
Mm-hmm.
back in his village, and how the discrimination and how his entire family faces discrimination in the villages
Mm-hmm.
because of his sister and because of other customs in the villages. His elder brother, his younger brother got drowned in the water, and
Mm-hmm.
that custom. I don't know it actually exists or not, but I
Mm-hmm.
thought there are these type of old customs, old traditions exist in our
Mm-hmm.
villages, and
Yeah.
and yeah, and they affect the life of the people here or there in our country. So
Mm-hmm.
the story that are based in our villages that are very much you know inspired by real life characters or real life scenarios in our life,
Mm-hmm.
uh, like that. In other stories, like another story which is based in the village, uh, that a boy who lives in the city, he wants to go back to the village to enjoy the scenario. So in
Yes.
these stories, there is a difference in. I try to make because these days people live a very fast paced life in the cities. They are very away from the villages. They don't know what uh, life is all about in the villages, and at
Mm-hmm.
the same time they think that life in the villages is very easy. There is
Mm-hmm.
all everything is settled. लहलाते हुए खेत होंगे, धान के पेड़ होंगे,
Right.
और हरियाली होगी, और लाइफ में कोई दिक्कत नहीं होगा. But that is
Mm-hmm.
not true. That is not exactly true.
Right.
There are problems in the villages as well. There are far more you know critical problems in the villages.
Mm-hmm.
So that is also very much inspired from the real life scenario that I've watched or seen in and
Mm-hmm.
around my society and in the villages. So that's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Characters are made into from the real life.
Mm,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That is, I think, definitely reflected in your books because these stories definitely, even though, as you said, they are fictional, but they
Mhm.
do seem very real as well. And in fact, the story, the title, Pain of 100 Years, I think that
Mhm.
definitely really explains everything you've been trying to say. That,
Yeah.
there's this whole custom where this
Mhm.
person gets abducted and forcefully
Yeah,
married to someone
yeah,
else. And this is something that we've seen in our country as well in
yeah,
certain
yeah,
customs.
yeah.
So yeah, I feel like you've definitely put these in your book
Yeah,
pretty well.
just in the story, I have named it like a tribe, to make it a story a little more
Yes,
interesting. There are a mountain in between.
yes,
These things are we see in our villages. Like there is a village X and there is a village Y,
right.
living on the two sides of a river, and there is a war going on for like 100 years and 200 years. His great grandfather is dead. That
Hmm.
thing is still continuing. His son is living, and then
Right,
it continues for years and years. So we see that. So
right, right.
yeah.
True. And also because you have put so many details in each and every story within the book. Like, did you have to research for it? Like, I mean, because it did take you a while to write it as well.
Yeah, yeah. It took me in every story. There are one or two stories that took me a lot of time. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
extensive research, and all the stories took a lot of time in doing research about the characters. Like
Mm-hmm.
before
Right.
writing that. Like when I was writing that story based in the Syria,
Mm-hmm.
I I knew what was going on there, but exactly to put the story on a fictional note,
Right.
you have to know the society there, how it exactly there. You have to know the roots as well. How will your
True.
characters travel from one country to another country? You have to know about that as well. If you are
Right.
going
Right.
from Syria to Greece to Turkey, then you
Mm-hmm.
have to know that now how but in a fictional story you cannot write anything like you are traveling from this country to this country, and
Yeah.
when people in real life know that there is no route from this country to
Yeah.
that country, so that should not happen.
True. True.
So exactly, in that case, writing stories like that, which contains a little bit of socio-political dynamics as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I have to do research on that, and I
Mm-hmm.
took a fair amount of time, as
You are on mute. Yes.
Hmm,
Yes. Audible.
yes.
Okay. So like also talking about research, I mean, like you already said, it does take a lot of time, right? But you're also not a full-time writer. You have
Yeah,
your own profession. So how do you
yeah.
manage that as a writer? Like, writing and also just everything in your life.
No, actually, when I started writing, I thought, I took it like whenever I got time, I used to write at the very beginning. It was not a task that I have to write every day or like that.
Mm-hmm.
In the very beginning, when even the idea of the book was not in my mind, I was just writing randomly. So
Right.
in the very beginning, the schedule was like that. As the thing progressed, and I thought, there was a hope in my mind that now I can turn it into a book. I have written a fair amount of words, and this is
Mm-hmm.
good. So after that, I decided I have to write 2 hours daily from this hours to this hours. I set
Mm-hmm.
a schedule for that, and at that time I used to write, uh, and that went very nicely for a few years as well. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, and the most of the editing part was round the clock. Like the last lockdown, when the
Mm-hmm.
corona started. I was in Delhi at that time,
Okay.
and I had almost completed the book. I completed the book and I started the editing as well. So at
Right.
that time, I was doing nothing else. I
Okay.
gave my entire time to the editing part only. So editing
Ah, okay.
was it was round the clock, 24 hours of sleeping and
Mhm.
just getting up and thus editing the work and then sleeping, eating, and then getting up and then start the work. So that was the schedule of the editing. But as far as
Right.
the writing was concerned, about writing, I never set any deadline for that. I thought
Mm-hmm.
आराम से लिखते हैं,
Right.
just take it easy, just take it easy.
Mm-hmm.
Because there were many days when I sat to write, I could not write anything. बहुत ऐसे दिन हुए जब बैठा और I could not write anything.
Right. Right.
So it also happened. But for editing, I was very consistent. And as far as the writing part, I just there was a fixed schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I I I I sat at that time. If there is anything, or I try to write anything, if I could, then I did, and if not, then I did not take a lot of stress about that. Now,
Mm-hmm.
because writing, as far as the creative writing, you cannot put a lot of stress on yourself, otherwise you
Mm-hmm.
lose the plot and anything, and that fine lining that you are trying to portray,
Mm-hmm.
you cannot do that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I completely agree with your writer's routine. I also believe that there should be a routine in place.
Mm.
But because
Yeah.
you've been writing sort of every day and editing, as you said,
Mm.
24 hours.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
did you also have other stories, like a few more stories that did not make it into the book?
Yeah. There was two
Okay.
stories that did not make into this book because
Okay.
I at the start I thought, I the word count would be less. I thought that, my book would be the stand. It would not make it like standard size of the book at the
Mhm.
very beginning, because I was when I had not edited the complete count. After the complete edition, there was a lot of addition in the stories. There was a lot of changes.
Right.
So, when I completely edited all the stories, then I thought, there was 12 stories, and I had to remove two of them from this book because I
Okay.
thought this would be a very bulky book, and I got,
Okay.
because 9 or 10, I thought 9 would be good, or 10. Then I went with 10 stories,
Right. Right.
at the end, and I left out two of those stories. Yeah,
Right. But that must have been hard to maybe like, decide
yeah,
which ones to
yeah,
not put in
yeah.
the book.
Yeah, that was very hard to decide actually. That story, I wanted wanted to include that story somehow, but I thought if I remove that story, then I there was a similar story, no, not
Hmm.
similar story, but the backdrop, like, a
Okay.
psychological thriller type story.
Okay.
There was another story, so I thought I should not make two of the stories belonging to the same theme.
Right.
So I
Right.
so I thought I have to choose one story out of that to remove from that book.
Hmm.
So I chose that story which I removed, and there is another story which is in the book, that is Haunting Hills.
Ah,
So
okay.
yeah, yeah.
We come to know
So
what it is about. Okay.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I also assume that, it must have been, I mean, writing a book and not knowing when to stop or to like what stories to put in, that is also something that people don't really think about when they are
mm,
writing. And
yes,
these are very much very essential elements which makes up a book. So, I mean, this is
yeah,
your first book also, so I'm assuming
yeah,
that now you have experience, and so moving
yeah.
forward, it could be easy for you or maybe not, but
Yeah, exactly. For the first book, besides writing, there are a lot, hell of things that take a lot of time. For
right.
the first time, in the very beginning, I had a problem in editing myself. I was struggling, and at the very beginning, then I was a little fluent. Then it became easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was struggling in setting a plot or setting like, climax of a story.
Mm-hmm.
In the
Right.
very beginning, I was struggling with that as well, so I sorted it out of my own. And then,
Okay.
so that's why, besides writing, there are a hell lot of things that take a lot of time of the authors if they are the first
True.
timers, and if they are not trained like that, that take a lot of time for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But as we move ahead, that time is saved, and we can
Mm-hmm.
write in less amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, this is your debut novel, but I mean, you do have experience in writing, like we discussed before. So, talking
Mhm.
about your history with writing, I would also like to discuss all the things that you've done before. So, you do have a website of your own. You have written for
Yeah.
reputed newspapers like The Hindu. So,
Yes.
is has writing been always been a passion, and what do you write about usually?
Yeah, writing was always a passion for me, because I was writing from my school days. But that
Right.
was random things, or any stories, or the speeches of the Independence Day or Republic Day, like that.
Right.
Nothing set of like creative stuff or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing, when I came in my college, when I was in my fifth semester, then I got an opportunity to work as an intern at the Hindu.
Okay.
And that selection was based on an article that I had written about the Delhi gang rape 2012. That was a hard talk
Ah,
article. That was a
right,
critical analysis.
right.
That was published in the magazine at IIT Kharagpur. So
Okay,
I always used to go there because my college was not very far away from IIT Kharagpur.
okay.
So I used to go there. So that was selected for that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that article I sent to the Hindu, and they liked it very much. They agreed to give me an opportunity as an intern at the Hindu.
Okay.
And that was the turning point. I learned lot many things there working as an intern, uh, and no one expected that so many articles of mine would get published with my name at the Hindu at that time, because I was doing my engineering. I was, no one expected me to be very good in English or anything, but the critical analysis was good. That's why the article that I wrote, the conversion rate means the publishing with that we call byline, the conversion rate was
Yes.
very because of that. And when I was in my college, I would like to disclose it this time in this interview that
Okay.
you know I gave medical in my college to bunk my entire semester to
Oh.
go for an internship in Delhi at the Hindu.
Okay.
So yeah,
Right.
because I never attended a single class in fifth semester. I came back from my internship. I gave my exams. I did well in my exams, but I never attended a class in my fifth semester. And I gave a medical that I'm going for a treatment in Delhi. But
Okay.
I went for my internship. Now that's the reality.
That
So
definitely
yeah,
speaks for your passion of writing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's many of my friends. They wondered, what you are doing. This is not a technical internship or anything like that matches your engineering career or anything like. I was doing my computer science engineering and going to the Hindu for writing internship. That was
Right.
completely different. But still, I believe that this is what I wanted to do, and I went there uh, and I completed my internship, and then I came back, and I was very satisfied with this, and it gave me a lot of exposure, and that's the thing where I started this journey, and I started writing quite more after that, so that's the thing. That's the first point.
Right. And what about your website? Like, what do you write over there?
In my website, I mostly like used to write about the psychological blocks. I I have already mentioned it that about the mental well-beings, and there are a lot of articles about that as well.
Right.
Uh, and the mental stigma that is attached to the mental illness in our society. I used to write about that, and there are something like some articles, socio-political articles. I also used to write there in my blog, but
Okay.
mostly the my interest lies in writing the psychological blocks, addressing the social stigma that is attached with the mental illness in our society.
I
Yes,
see. Can you tell the audience your website address so that they can maybe check it out?
yes, it is www.abuzaronline.com.
Yes. So,
Yes,
like you're talking about all the themes that you're talking about for your blog and also all the things that you wrote for the Hindu. I feel like that also translated really well in the book because, like you
yeah,
already mentioned, the book and the stories within the book definitely spans a lot, all the human psyche, the
yes,
society and
yeah,
people within and the things that they go through. So I think that is something that you are quite fluent at doing, and I
yes,
think that's
yes,
a great thing that you put out a book for that.
yes,
But
yes.
talking about putting out the book, how did the publishing process go for you?
Yep. Publishing process. It at the very beginning, I was not sure how the publishing industry in India is exactly.
Right.
So I was trying to figure out a lot of things. I was reading here and there how to go about, and I knew that the traditional publishing is tough in India, and I was sure about one thing that I I will never go with self publishing.
Okay.
So I was sure about it. So uh, I started pitching my book and with my proposal and query letter and everything with several publishers. And in the process, when I pitched to UKIOTO and they responded positively, and they called for the entire manuscript. I
Mhm.
initially I submitted the sample chapters, 3 sample chapters, with the query letter and everything, and they liked it, and they called for the entire manuscript. And then I sent them the entire manuscript, and I was quite hopeful that they would uh, this book would go through.
Yeah.
And then I got a response from them, and they agreed to work on this project.
Mhm.
And then and then we signed a contract. And before Kyoto, there was I was trying with several other publishers as well.
Mhm.
So the process of trying with the publishers after the edition was after the complete edited file was complete. It also took a long time for me, like around 6 months. So
Okay.
yeah, so after Kyoto, we signed a contract, and then the process has started. Like there was I sent them the complete file, and then the edition, and then the discussion started on many things. Like when they edited the complete file and then sent me again, and
Right.
then I gave my input on that, and then sent me again. So it took a fair amount of time, and that was fair to be for a book like this. I thought uh, I was not in a hurry. I thought um, the content of the book should be fine.
Mhm.
And at the last, when they there were 2 3 rounds. First time when they edited the file, they sent me. I approved of some of the changes. Then I gave some of my inputs, and they they saw that again. They again gave their inputs. Then again sent me back. Then again I saw all those things, and it continued for a while. And when everything was finalized, and when they created the whole inner layout, after that
Mhm.
also there were a lot of changes around. I remember around 127 changes I made after the inner layout was completed. I went through all the chapters, every word by word, every line by line again, and I proposed 127 changes after that,
Mhm.
and most of that were accepted. I literally gave around 6 to 7 days to go through all the inner layouts,
Mhm.
to make sure that even one comma or full stop is not mistaken in the book.
Mhm.
So, and they were equally very responsible for that.
Mhm.
uh, they 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 looked at that changes uh, very patiently. And if they were uh, if that change was not needed, they again sent me back, like writing that this is
Mhm.
not needed here. Then I
Right.
thought on that, and then again I sent them back. So this continued for a while, and that's the reason, it was a good fair amount of discussion between
Mhm.
the publisher and me. And that's the reason why I was very satisfied at the end when this whole process was completed.
Mhm. Well, I'm definitely glad that you were satisfied with the services that we provide at
Yeah.
Kyoto. But also, what I'm hearing is that as a writer, and especially as a debut writer, you have to have patience, is what I
Yes,
think
yes,
is what
yes,
you're trying to say. So,
exactly.
patience being definitely one of the things that you've enlightened us on. I would also
Mm.
like you to give authors and writers who are watching this session
Yes,
some tips on writing and maybe publishing, everything related to
yes, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, the first thing is, as you said, patience is the key
Mhm.
when you start
Right.
writing. This is a marathon. This is not like a sprint race where you write one day and then sit another day, and then your book will be completed. Everyone, many people wants to become author, and but how many turn really, their dream into reality? There are very
True.
few. And the reason is not that they cannot write. The reason is that they lose patience in between the journey. They leave writing. They
Yeah.
start well, but in between, like 1 month, after 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, they leave writing. They think that it is very hectic, it is very tiring. So in those times, you have to have patience and you think that, if today I cannot write, let it be. I
Mm-hmm.
would wake up again I will try the next day. Like,
Right.
there are 3 4 scenes in my book
Mm-hmm.
which took me 1 month. I was not able to write that thing. I wake up every day, I try to write, and the next day when I read that, कुछ
Mm-hmm.
मजा नहीं आया, this is not the way I wanted it to be. Then
Right.
again I change that, then again I wake up again, and then again I write that.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be, very patient in this journey, and writing and publishing both as well. Both
Mm-hmm.
demand a lot of patience, because
True.
and never set a deadline for yourself. Like in today's times, there are a lot of public speakers, motivators say that, write your book in 1 month or 2 months. I don't approve of that, because I don't think how can a person write a book in 1 month. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
exactly, because when you set a deadline for yourself, like a creative work,
Mm-hmm.
so there is a thinking block. There could be a thinking block in your mind when you are writing, when you are curating a story, and after that, after curating that story, you have to polish that story as well,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to think of the small nitty-gritties of the stories,
True.
the dynamics around that story. You have to take care of a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a deadline going on, like today I have to complete this story, then surely you will be in a hurry. And
Mm-hmm.
in that case, there are high chances that we would miss a lot of things in that story. So I doubt that if anyone would follow these tactics, like, become an author in 1 month or 2 months, I'm sure that I doubt that they would ever become an author.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And second thing is that, you have to do required amount of research before writing a book. Like, you cannot randomly write anything, because if you write a book, you have to read first uh, about the thing that you are writing about. And that's the thing. Aspiring I want to tell to all the aspiring authors,
Mm-hmm.
uh, because do a fair amount of research first before starting, or even if you have started writing, keep on researching side by side about your stories, and you can change your plot and storyline every. There is no fixed method that you should follow. You can make your own methods. You can follow your own methods. Just writing, and at the end, you remember that you have the key to the editing. You just write, and the editing part is in your hand. You
Mm-hmm.
have to edit your story, and it should look good to you. You read that
Right.
again, you edit that again, and you read that again. At the end, you polish that story in a very, very nice manner, and that
Mm-hmm.
should look good to you, and that
Mm-hmm.
is the key.
Mm-hmm. Very nicely put, in my opinion. And what I understood from what you said is that a writer needs to have patience. They and also they need to dedicate their time to writing,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Right.
Hmm.
So definitely, thank you so much for giving us these tips. And because you have such an amazingly put routine for yourself for writing, so I would also like to ask, what plans do you have in the future when it comes to the writing sector? Like, will we see more collection of stories or like a series? What do you think?
Yes, I have started my second book
Okay,
already. Yeah, uh, it's on a hold for a few days, due to this accident and due to the surgery. But I have
okay,
already start. I have already started that book. Uh, it's a work of fiction again, and
okay,
it's not a collection of stories. It's a complete
okay,
a complete story in a book.
okay,
And yeah, based the storyline and the plot is based in India itself this time.
okay.
Uh, so it's in a very early stage, and I plan to make it complete as soon as possible as I can. Yes, and
Okay. Very much looking forward to what you have for us. But also, I mean, looking at the book that you have released and how amazing it is and how amazingly it puts forward the viewpoint of the society, how characters live within the society. I am expecting a lot from your next book as well.
Yes.
But for
Thanks.
today, thank you so much for joining us and talking with us about your book, Two-Faced. I would like to tell the audience that you can grab your copy of Two-Faced from www.oxfordbookstore.com after this session, and you can read the stories and think about everything that we've talked about in this session, because we have really tried to keep it spoiler free, and we would love to see your comments in this session to how what you thought about the book, what you thought about this session. So please leave your comments in the comment section. And thank you so much, Mr. Abuzar, for joining us
Thank,
today. Would you
thank you,
like to?
thank you so
Yes.
much this week. It
Yeah,
was
would you like
pleasure.
to give like a few concluding words to the audience?
Few concluding words, like if they have any comments or any question, they can ask that below the videos and interview, because
Mhm.
as this is a recorded video, so I
Mhm.
will answer their questions there,
Mhm.
whatever questions they have regarding writing or publishing or anything. Be it.
Mhm.
So I would try to answer their questions there below the video. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much again for joining us. But now we will end the session here today. So thank you and take care, Mr. Abuzar, about your hand.
Thank you. Thank you. It was pleasure talking to you.